Hi, as we plow through the DOS B-listers for different subgenres, we've finally landed on 2D shoot-em-ups, a genre that sported some truly amazing AAA games on DOS. So, let's see how the subs bench looked as compared to them. While you could say that Sidewinder is nothing special today and just your average kind of a shooter, you have to remember when it released, and that when it didn't sport still popular at the time nightmare-inducing CGA presentation. Instead, it ran in full 16-color EGA and looked rather well, for the time at least. For all intents and purposes, it's your everyday shooter in which you go through 6 increasingly more demanding levels, pushing a little ship upwards, shooting the enemies first and asking questions later. Well, since most of the bodies seem to die in a fiery blaze exploding into a firework of microparticles, there's not that much questioning going on. But on an odd chance that one would survive a meeting with your high-velocity projectiles, that's when you'll be asking questions. While Sidewinder is a vertically scrolling shooter, there is some degree of side-scrolling when you reach the edges of the screen. It's worth to keep that in mind if you're playing for the high score, as the enemies tend to hide there too. Each level starts and ends with a tunnel traveling section, and each has a bit different graphically theme, be it space or woodland and anything in between, keeping the game fresh all throughout. The enemies are rather varied and both land and air, but other than their looks and movement patterns, they hardly differ from one another, which is not a biggie, given when Sidewinder released and that it was a very 8-bit feeling title. I mean, naturally, it didn't release on any of the 8-bit systems, but design-wise, it felt very simple. There are no power-ups in Sidewinder, and all you have to deal with the enemies is your twin shot. For most others it would be an issue, a fight against overwhelming odds, but for you, it's just another Wednesday afternoon before dinner. The game features no bosses at all, which is a bit disappointing if you ask me, because I like to have that big bad at the end of the stage, making me memorize its patterns to even stand the chance of progressing, but whatever. It is what it is. And Sidewinder, instead of the bosses, serves you large ground structure with turrets and more enemies when you're nearing the end of the level. It's okay too, just not as fun. When all levels are completed, the game carries on from the first again, meaning that skilled enough player could play it near indefinitely. I don't see that happening though, seeing how stiff the controls are and how enemies are homing straight at you. Story-wise, after years of devastating intergalactic war, a stalemate was reached and neither of the sides seemed to have an advantage, at least until the Starkiller came. Seemingly from nowhere, a gigantic ship the size of the planet with cannons as big as Manhattan, many of them I must add, appeared in our system, threatening the existence of our entire species. So, as per usual in situations like that, we pulled an ace out of our collective sleeve, and that ace happens to be you. So don't fail us, please. Ajax, also known as Typhoon, is a rather unspectacular vertically scrolling shoot-em-up based on arcade original of the same name. Guess what the background story of Ajax is. Come on, give it a go. Don't be shy, I'll wait. Did you said aliens invaded Earth again? You did? Great, cause that's what happened. I mean, it's not great cause it happened, but great cause you got it right. And you know that it's you who'll have to deal with it all now, right? So, sitting behind the remote controls of a helicopter gunship, you'll have to repel the aliens invaders and their forces through 8 levels that the game is built of, preferably surviving the whole process. I mean, you're you, so your chances of survival are at least twice as high as those of an entire alien armada, but be careful anyway, we need you. You're armed with air-to-air weapons and bombs, and you'll have to turn all the flying aliens into natural air-delivered manure and their on-ground structures into pockets of scrap metal and spare parts to be sold by those less fortunate to scrapyards. Or is it just here, and not a worldwide phenomenon? Anyway, there are 4 weapons used in air-to-air combat, and it's Vulcan Cannon, Freeway Shot, Triple, yes, they're not the same, and Laser. As in most shooters though, only one of these can be equipped at a time. There are no replacement weapons for bombing of ground targets, but you can upgrade their power and speed. Ajax also features a limited supply of smart bombs used for clearing large clusters of enemies. Enemies that come in pre-arranged, pre-baked, very AI-organized patterns that never change. So, it falls back on the genre standard of requiring you to memorize everything to go further and further with each consecutive playthrough. It's not unusual, especially in those early games, and truth be told, it makes Ajax a very pick-up-and-play type of a game, where you don't have to adapt to intelligent opponents and can rely on your memory only. Regular or muscle, both work as well. Each level ends with a boss fight, and these are rather fun and challenging. In fact, the entire game seems to be more difficult than the arcade original, which at times makes it a tad frustrating. Constantly being under fire from both air and ground target enemies, with your copter incapable of taking any serious beating. While the arcade original of Ajax was really fun, impressive looking for the time it released in, and one of the best shooters out there, this 1989's PC port is seriously let down by its graphics, which while using EGA were not very flashy and rather simple. On top of that, Ajax ran disappointingly choppy and seemingly for no reason too, which is not a good look for a shooter. Don't get me wrong though, it's not a bad game, but it's average at best, at least on PC. Operation Harrier is a decent overhead, always scrolling shoot 'em up. The levels, here called missions, are not your typical kill everything fare we're used to with box standard shoot 'em ups and have objectives. It's usually a destruction of a particular target, and it can be a whole manner of air, sea and land vehicles. For instance, an enemy aircraft carrier or power plant. You're equipped with air-to-air and air-to-everything else than air missiles and cannon, and you'll be using those all the freaking time. Mainly to explain the omnipresent enemies that the skies are yours and you're the hawk in the region. Hawk that defends and watches it like a, well, hawk. I fell for my own trap. How silly. So you will protect the air as if there was no tomorrow. There's always something to do in Operation Harrier, even if it's a disappointingly short game. Either your main mission objectives or entire squadrons of enemies unlucky enough to have flown your way. There's always going to be something to annihilate. If you add to it that the game feels unlike regular shooters, and also not like simulators either, but more like something in between the two, it makes for a rather interesting and fun experience, even if not overly long and only spanning a handful of missions. So, if you decide to give it your entire afternoon, you may find yourself completing all of Operation Harrier's missions faster than you anticipated. Sure, you can chase down the remaining enemies after, but it's hardly as fun, and repeating the same missions, restarting the game is not really something you'd like to do with this one twice in a row. There are a few things though that add to the fun factor, or annoyance level, depends on which camp you find yourself in. Namely, you have to keep an eye on your fuel levels, armament and damage all throughout each mission, and if necessary, return to a friendly base for rearming, refuel and repairs. Some will enjoy this added touch of realism, others may find it to be a busy work where none was actually needed. It's worth pointing out that with each mission, Operation Harrier gets more and more demanding, so if you ever feel overwhelmed by being chased by the enemy craft and targeted by numerous AA missile sites, you can switch to map view and travel this way, avoiding all the dangerous areas until you're at your intended target location. I wouldn't call it cheating, but it's definitely cheesing, so keep that in mind. Operation Harrier's biggest selling point and issue, both rolled into one, is definitely its graphics, and especially the rotation. It's an interesting effect of having the background rotate around your plane instead your plane on the background, and while it's neat, it can also prove to be a bit disorienting to some gamers. 1991's Battlestorm is a port from Amiga and an always scrolling shoot 'em up. After years of traveling and exploring the space, seeking new civilizations and species, going where no man has gone before, you're finally ready to come back home, to Earth. And you did. But to your surprise, it's not a beautiful blue marble full of life, hopes and dreams that you left, but a beautiful blue marble, cause you know, some things don't change, invaded and taken over by the aggressive alien forces. And that change is one for the books. And while it was unexpected, you're you, and it's not your first interstellar rodeo, so naturally you jump into the best, heaviest armed state-of-the-art craft that you have access to and vouch to eradicate the invaders. Even if it's going to be one by one. And as you predicted, it actually is. Literally one by one. I mean, they come in large numbers, but you're alone and can only do as much all by yourself. As video game stories go, this one's not the best, but Battlestorm is a shooter, so who cares? It's composed out of 4 levels, each divided into 2 smaller sub-stages for a total of 8, and you'll get to fight and destroy various air and ground enemies before taking on the titular Battlestorm, alien headquarters and their guardians. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Battlestorm is demanding, and when I say so, I'm not throwing these words in the air, it really is. So if I could suggest something, it would be to start at the lower side of the difficulty, so that you'd get time to accustom yourself to how it plays before moving to the more demanding choices. Interestingly enough, not all stages are always scrolling, some are horizontal only, while others move in vertical fashion. It may seem odd at first, but it adds a lot to the variety, and there's no such thing as too much variety in gameplay. We've already established that Battlestorm is difficult, so to combat the odds criminally stacked against you, you have pickups. and there are many. Strong lasers and homing missiles, for instance, with likes of fire rate and movement speed mixed for good measure. And you should make your priority to always pick them up if you get a chance. Don't think you'll come back for one, cause you just need to dispose of that group of enemies or that annoying fighter that's been on your tail for a while or whatever. If you know where a pickup is, and you will, as the pop-up messages will let you know, go and get it. They will be crucial for your survival. And Earth's future too. Enemies come in large groups and waves, and taken care of, they are closely followed by the bomb-dropping mothership, and eventually a boss that will chase you around the playfield, sponging them shots of yours as if they were nothing. It's not all great though, I mean gameplay-wise it's all fine, nothing to complain about, but the porting itself, and especially the presentation, is of questionable quality. On its original platform, Amiga, Battlestorm used only 32 colors, and they were everywhere, on your craft, on enemies, and in the backgrounds. It looked great. They were mixed like a tiny work of art, that they kinda were. And on PC, even using VGA capable of 256 colors at once, the game looks bland and monochromatic. Like 3 shades of grey on 4 of brown, and another few bit darker shades of grey with some red here and there only. I'm not sure what happened there during porting, but it's disappointing to say the least. Galactix is a liar, is a cheat, and also a bad boy of a game. Pretty fun romp in space too, but we'll get to that in a minute. Why is it a liar, you may wonder? Also, how can game be a liar? Well, I'm happy to answer. So Galactix tries to make you think, nay, feel that it's a vertically scrolling shooter. That you travel in the universe at breakneck speeds, pewing enemies into eternal quiet of the vacuum of space, level by level, stage by stage, reg by reg. When in fact it's a static screen shooter like Galaga or Galaxians, just using the background particles flowing downwards to simulate the feeling of movement. And these particles are just the most annoying thing ever, as they get mixed up with enemy shots easily, making Galactix unnecessarily more difficult than it should have been. I'm all for gradual increase of difficulty as you advance through the game, but not via bad stylistic choices. That I don't like. Anyway, it may be a reoccurring theme today, given the subgenre that we're into, but naturally, aliens have attacked the Earth. In fact, they announced it, along with their desire to enslave us. They even dared boasting that nothing can stand in their way. How naive of them. Well, also, how correct. Nothing can stop them. Someone can though. You. As soon as you come back from shooting all the baddies in Battlestorm, that is. Gameplay-wise, Galactix is most similar to Galaxian, with enemy ships coming in groups and diving at you, and shooting missiles every now and then too. You know, that you would not feel too comfortable while trying to repel them. Fortunately, you don't die from one hit in Galactix and have a deflector shield, a marvel of Star Trek-inspired ingenuity, which can take quite a few shots before it gives in. And beware, as well thanks to it you're more resistant on an immediate basis, you still only have one life. The continues are not limited though, so the choice to carry on and cheat the death so to speak is entirely up to you. There's few different pickups in Galactix, so rapid fire, twin and triple shots, bombs for those "oh shit I'm about to die" moments, extra missiles as a separate secondary weapon, and energy tanks for your shield. And to get them, you have this interesting addition in the form of grappling arm, which can extend entire screen length onto pickups to grab and bring them back to your ship. It's an unusual choice and fun for a little while. It gets tedious with time though, and soon enough you'll want your pickups to just fall downwards like any other game. Overall, there's no reason to dance around the subject, the gameplay is rather simple in Galactix, the enemies are plenty but not very distinct from one another, and the fun factor holds for a couple of hours or so. After that, if you're still playing, you're more than likely thinking of switching games already. Major Stryker, as opposed to Minor Stryker, which was my nickname in high school, don't ask why, I'm embarrassed, is Apogee's Masters of the Shareware, another successful attempt at vertically scrolling shoot 'em up. And as with most of their games, this one too, whether there was a reason for it or not, has a story. Because why the hell not? So, 8 years after the end of the Third World War, aliens known only as Cretons attacked the Earth. And we were so close, you know, if they were only called cretins, it would have been so much easier. They wouldn't be capable of any advanced tactics. But to no avail, it seems. So, the plan was formed to hit them where it hurts the most, and no, it's not in their alien balls, which coincidentally they carry on their backs, but within their own star system, at the hearts of their trio of homeworlds. You, my indestructible fearless viewer, play as Major Harrison Stryker and are tasked by the lovely Admiral Yoshira of going to aliens' 3 main planets and destroying their military installations. So, appropriately to your surname, it's a last strike type of a mission. If you fail, we're doomed and there will be no more bacon. So keep in mind that your potential failure will effectively erase this salty delicacy from the universe forever. And that is something we cannot allow and also worth fighting for. Major Stryker is composed out of 3 thematically unique and fun-to-mow-through worlds, filled with numerous alien bodies and installations to destroy. It features many different weapon upgrades and shields, and a whole plethora of power-ups, changing how your ship behaves, influencing the gameplay itself, or adding bombs to your arsenal. The 3 difficulty levels available to pick between in the game are considerably different from one another, changing the number of enemies dramatically and also access to available power-ups. The bigger the challenge, the more points you can get though, so if you're aiming for the score run, always pick the highest. Major Stryker is a tough game, so it's best to train on lower difficulties first before moving to more demanding ones. The graphics are as good as they can be on EGA, featuring lush backgrounds and various unique sprites for enemies and foreground objects alike. Oh, and 3-level parallax scrolling, so something that was more often expected in VGA titles and not 16-color EGA games. If you're a fan of shooters, Major Stryker is a no-brainer. The game, not the soldier's rather smart, good-looking and popular with the ladies, human and alien alike, and not only cause it's you playing as him, even if it's a major factor. Still, the game is great, check it out. First Flying Tigers, coincidentally also released in 1994, was not a great game. It kinda sucked. I mean, I've seen and played worse, much worse even, but it seems to have failed on nearly all fronts. Graphics, sound, gameplay and variety all were subpar and disappointing. Now this second game must be much better, right? Well, and rarely anything good starts with well. But this time it's actually not that terrible. Sure, Flying Tigers 2 ain't gonna win any awards, nor it did when it released, but it wasn't as underwhelming as its older sibling was. It's still a low-budget mid-effort type of affair, but at the very least it seems to be working, most of the time. You're once again behind the steering wheel, no, not the case here, behind the flying stick of an experimental high-tech craft known as the Flying Tiger, and fighting against Techno Terrorists, no less. Even more so, ones that vouch to destroy any and all Flying Tigers. Why? Who knows? Also, who cares? It's a shooter, its budget was a crate of beer, 2 stale pizzas and a pack of Kleenex tissues, half of them used, so let's leave it at that and focus on the gameplay. It's a bog-standard vertically scrolling shoot-em-up in which you devour hundreds if not thousands of mostly different enemy planes, with an occasional ground installation falling to your onslaught of bullets from time to time. As in most games in the genre, you'll get to find and pick up weapon upgrades, but unlike the standard, they also heal you a little in Flying Tigers 2. Yellow-colored bonuses change the type of your main weapon, while the blue ones replace the secondary one, giving you a choice between lasers, missiles and flaming napalm. Fortunately, you can shoot at the bonuses to have them flip between the available options so that you can pick what you'd like to grab. You're scored on the number of enemy planes and vehicles destroyed, and let me tell you, whatever your number says at the end of the level, it's not enough. At least not based on how enemies keep pushing at you, clearly having something against pilot as handsome as yourself. Every 4 levels you encounter bosses, yes plural, and these are mostly special, very powerful and resistant planes. Mostly, but not only, as you'll get to face zeppelins and warships too, and even volcanoes at some point. I know, don't ask, it's stupid, but it's also stupidly fun to see something so otherworldly as the enemy. I just can't dislike it. It's great. So, second Flying Tigers is much better than the first, still not great as compared to Raptor, Tyrian and other A-listers, but as a budget kind of a game, it's actually pretty decent. Baryon is a definition of a hidden gem. Why it ended up being virtually unknown and forgotten by the gaming world is something I do not understand in the slightest. And it's also a vertically scrolling shoot-em-up and one of the best shareware games in the genre. It features 2 different ships to choose from, each with its own unique set of upgradable weapons, missiles, both regular and homing, with the earlier being stronger and latter more convenient, and a bomb and a shield, which hopefully are more than self-explanatory. It's chock full of many different and unique enemies, and they seem to be having something against you, something personal no less, as they're going at you all the time from all sides relentlessly, as if their own life meant nothing to them. They're kamikazing their way into you as often as they're trying to shoot you. If you play your cards right, however, I meant if you aim your shots right and use bombs wisely, that's precisely what their lives will be. Nothing. A pile of smoking debris somewhere, forgotten by you the moment that the shot connected. That said, don't underestimate Baryon, as it's definitely not one of the easier shooters out there. On the contrary, it will test both your reaction speed and how well you can adapt to ever-changing on-screen action. Come to think of it, the difficulty and unforgiving nature of Baryon is what may have been one of the factors of its obscurity. I've no data to support this claim, it's just how I feel. Shower version consists of one level only, which I feel is not enough to familiarize yourself with the title to the point of being able to decide if Baryon is something you'd like to invest your money in. Fortunately, it was more of an issue in 1995 than it is now, so it's just an observation and shouldn't influence your opinion about it. Full commercial release version has 6 levels, and while it's not a lot either, coupled with the challenge that the game offers, it should provide for a few evenings of fun mixed with frustration, in different measures entirely dependent on how good of a gamer you are. And I'm not great. So, lengthwise it's not a big title, but in terms of quality, it's stellar. I'd risk saying that it's not far off from everyone's favorite Tyrion. Not as good, but pretty damn close. Baryon's presentation is exceptional, the enemies and stages are all unique and beautifully designed, there's tons upon tons of explosions on screen at once, and the graphics could be summarized as clean but detailed, which is the best way they can be in a shooter. Sounds are pretty decent, some of them very heavy, perhaps a bit too much, but in the end it all adds up to the fun factor. If you manage to find Baryon somewhere for a decent price or on a random abandonware site and are into shoot 'em ups, then it's probably the best title in today's video. Seek and Destroy explains its premise best with its own title, because that's precisely what you'll be doing in it, seeking your targets and then showering them with kisses and hugs like a little puppy, or destroying them, one of the two. Who am I to tell you what to do when you get to them? It's also a port of Amiga's 1993's original and technically interesting always scrolling shoot 'em up. It's a similar tech to that in our today's earlier title, Operation Harrier, but used better I think, and much better feeling during gameplay. Desert Strike is closest title that I could compare Seek and Destroy to, with a difference of it being top-down, much faster, rotating and much less structured. It's also not limited to desert-based locations and features missions in jungle, snowy regions and over ocean too. It lets you pick one of two vehicles, either a copter or a huge-ass tri-barrel tank, and pew 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 your enemies into non-existence, fast and nimble or slow and accurately, respectively. In most of 14 available missions, split into smaller individual stages, you'll be able to pick which you'd like to use, although some phases force use of a specific machine. As you turn your enemies into irrelevant members of your, by either rockets or high-caliber projectiles, you find and gather medals. These can be used between the stages to purchase free levels of upgrades for weapons and better your vehicles too. It's also when you decide how to split your fuel, armor and speed ratios to min-max your vehicle for the challenges ahead. It's not something you'd expect from such an old title, and yet it's there, and it's surprisingly complex. Missions, however, are not, and in most cases revert to requiring what the title states only. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it, it's just a shoot 'em up after all, just that the game as polished as this one could really benefit from a bit more variety. Fortunately, Seek and Destroy more than makes up for it all with playability, and it's as fun as it looks on the footage. Well, I'm a bit rusty, so it may seem more chaotic than fun, but despite that, I assure you, it's pretty darn cool, even if a bit hectic. In the end, Seek and Destroy's technically interesting approach to movement and fast action is what makes it fun. And as much as I liked it, having played it today, it's clear to me that I'm nowhere near as good at it as I remember. Still, it's a worthy addition to any shoot 'em ups fans collection. Alien Phobia is an outlier in this video, for many reasons. And since I've nothing better to do now, do you? I totally ignored the fact that you might be busy. Oh, nothing. Thought so. So I'm gonna list them all here. First of all, it's not a vehicular shooter like all the others, but instead you play as a nondescript soldier. A veteran at an advanced age, judging by the speed he paces around the screen, and he's sporting a huge-ass gun. So he's a deadly machine, you may think, one capable of killing dozens, maybe hundreds of aliens at a time. Right? You know, with the unlimited ammo that he's got there and all, well, yes and also no. Yes, that's probably doable, and no, you're watching me playing. So you know, a gamer with a very special subset of skills, none of which have anything to do with gaming. Also, why the hell the soldier shoots at an angle and not straight ahead? I mean, how am I supposed to be plowing my way through soon-to-be-dead alien scum if I shoot sideways while going forwards? What gives, man? Well, terrible design ideas and even worse gamers aside, let's talk about what else is different about Alien Phobia. It's played in a single screen, and I know we've had one of these games today already, but this one never clears, never stops, never gives you a second to run down to toilet for a little pee. Nope, it just keeps spitting waves upon waves of aliens at you, hoping that you'll be able to handle it all. And you might. Me, not so much. Also, the more of the decomposing corpses that there are, the slower the game runs. I suppose I could bump up the core speeds of those blocks a little, but you know, it's not that good looking or sounding game to require me to do so. And finally, Alien Phobia is a survival shooter. So there's no story. I mean, I'll think of one for you in a minute, so that you'd not feel like the game has no reason to exist, but in reality, there's none. So all you have to do is survive for as long as you can, and your score is the number of alien corpses that you leave behind. And that's pretty much it. Oh, there's an HP bar in the game, so luckily it's not one hit, one kill kind of a thing, but trust me, it goes down fast as soon as there's more than 20-ish of these bastards running around you. Alien Phobia, it's not great, it's not bad, it's a title for an old game or two every time you can't decide what to play next, and in essence, just a 3-minute palette cleaner before making the final call on a bigger, better and longer lasting title. I did promise you a story, didn't I? Imagine the world in which all Pokemon trainers lost their ability to successfully catch and train Pokemon, and with time died off from an old age. Terrible, I know. Especially because now all the poke creatures, as I will call them from now on for many different reasons, none of which has anything to do with the Big N and their legal teams, are running rampant and humping like radioactive rabbits, creating new and deadlier hybrids. Soon enough, they've become the alpha species of our planet, and we're the ones that they hunt and train now. Yep, you and I, buddy, you and I. Well, not me, cause you know, I'm here recording the videos, but definitely you. Yep, tough luck. Oh, okay, not you either it seems, cause you're you and you're not gonna be caught by no poke creature. So others are caught, trained and sent against each other in battles. So you've got those different breeds of humans that the poke creatures catch and level up. There's the hobo human, his skill is the ability to turn anything he finds into a nickel and buff himself with an armor made out of trash cans. There's the X-Cap human that has a taser, and when buffed by a donut throw skill of Baker human, he can grow twice in size and double its strength. There's a lot of strategy to it, you know? It's not just a game for poke creatures kids, trust me. Overall, there's like 180 or 190 more of these humans. One of them is the Reserves Vet human. He's been in military reserves all his life, never saw live combat, and spent more of his time playing League of Legends than training. Now he's 65 and the star of the game. The game itself depicts a training grounds for it, where a human trainer, so one of the superior poke creatures, can use his level 20 upgraded and still followed Reserves Vet human to train and grind levels. Crappy story, I know, but what can you expect from a crappy storyteller? The end. How did you like today's selection, guys? 10 years of those shooters through prism of questionable quality B-listers. Some better, some less so, some, well, alien phobia. Make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.